forward because we got a few questions. So, in terms of looking at budgets, can you talk about what % of your organization's marketing budget is dedicated to digital marketing right now?
So for us, from just a media spend perspective, it's about an even split. About half of our media spend goes towards offline and about half is online. But I think also an important nuance in there is the offline spend is basically just all TV for us. And we've all but killed print, radio, out of home, and put all of that money into digital. So because we do a big annual TV spend, it ends up being about half, but I don't know if that even tells the whole story about how fundamentally we've shifted dollars towards online media.
How did Undercover Boss help?
You know, Undercover Boss, what Steve really liked is that Undercover Boss had a ton of people searching on him that Google provided us data around. It got us a lot of, to the earlier point, actually, you were raising that the real important thing, I mean, not to be cliche or trite, but the real important thing is integrated marketing, right? That's at the heart of it. And what we saw with Undercover Boss is that was a great example of how we were able to see the interaction between what was, for all intents and purposes, a PR channel and our online channel, right? And how did that influence search and what kind of different types of search terms that we need to buy in order to capture that traffic of people who are looking to learn about choice. And so, the real key there, what's great, I think, about digital marketing right now is that 1 + 1 doesn't just equal 2 anymore. 1 + 1 can be 3 if you're making sure that you're having consistency of messaging and consistency of strategy across all of your channels, offline, online, PR, social, everything you can imagine, because we're seeing those kind of, for lack of a better word, synergies between those different channels, which we're really excited about. And I think one of the things, I'm sure a lot of you guys have either seen it in your own living rooms or you've seen that pictorial representation of a family sitting in a living room and they're watching TV and they have their iPads and they have their mobile devices and they have their gaming devices and they have all of these screens up at once. And not only does the burden of responsibility subsequently mean for us that you want to be integrated because people are seeing messages and they're seeing content and they're seeing things about your brands in different places. They're seeing it concurrently in different places, right? So it's even a greater burden of responsibility for us as marketers to make sure that we are taking an integrated approach.
Well, each of our brands actually has their own budget, so it varies from brand to brand. But if you aggregate it up across the organization, and to Kelly's point, I think it's important to say in terms of media, because obviously there's, the marketing fund pays for more than just media, and so there's a lot of investments in websites. So if you said that was an investment in e-commerce, then the number could be higher. But in terms of media, we're somewhere around 50 to 60% online, but it does vary by brand.
Right.
And I think that something that we're doing, and I know actually you are as well, is that all of our offline media actually points back to the website, though, educating consumers on the value of booking online. So it's really that integrated campaign that is pushing people back to the website, whether they're going to book or not, at least to go there to learn about the brand, to learn about the property, and to recommend that as the preferred channel of booking. You're always going to get the guaranteed lowest price. You're going to get your loyalty points, no hassle cancellations, all of those things. So, as everyone's been saying, it really is about integration. It's less about online and offline. So we might be spending our money differently, but all of our media is talking about the web as the source of truth and where you get the information.
So that's where you look to push all your customers to.
Yeah, we don't, we used to do kind of the call center and the 800 number, and we don't even promote the call center. We still get plenty of calls if people, want to call us, or the numbers on the website. We get a lot of calls. Again, we have proprietary phone numbers for each of the different channels, so we know, but we still get a ton of calls off of the website as well. So if somebody wants to call, they're going to find the number, but we're not going out of our way to push that. We're pushing each of the brand websites as well as WindhamHotelsGroup.com.
Right.
So Expedia, we don't differentiate between digital and traditional.
Right.
We spend about 35% of our revenue, which a couple of years ago was about $1.2 billion, purely on marketing.
Yeah.
So we will spend quite a bit on marketing. Obviously, in the online space, we do that, but yet we have lots of commercials. See Smart flying through the air, a variety of Expedias out there, Hotwire out there. Exactly. So we do spend quite a bit on marketing in that area. And as you said about call center, we definitely get quite a bit of business coming through the call center, especially with the different languages. Even Hotels.com just localized the Hotels.com site in the U.S. into Spanish because we found that quite a bit of business in California and Texas, quite a bit of Spanish-speaking consumers were not able to call and speak to somebody, so we did enhance our call centers for that.
Right.
It's amazing.
We recommend between 50 and 70, but it's client specific and where they are in the brand life cycle and what will be accomplished, and it depends on that. But as you pointed out, that it's really integrated, so digitally it touches or is impacted by your last that we recommend through the channels.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So ours, it depends much like everybody else, pretty much where we are in which country we're in.
Mm-hmm.
But on average, between 50 to 60% directly on digital channels.
Right.
But everything, even offline, drives either to us digitally, but we're a little bit more on the top of the funnel. Until we get, some of our campaigns are more retail, but some of them are more branding. Mm-hmm. So some of them are going to drive to different places, whether it's a social site, the website, the mobile site, or to tour operators.
Right.
With our online partners. So it really depends on where that's going to be driven to, what the tactics are.
With our e-commerce sites, so everything drives to the website and all integrated, but we do spend more and more every year, more percentage on year.
I have to ask this because obviously, so there's two OTAs in the room and have the brands here. So I wanted to ask, and obviously these, I see it every day that OTAs are ubiquitous on television. Expedia, you see it all over the place. Everyone knows the jingles. Is it tough for the brands, not to compete, but when you see that in terms of marketing, their spend and they're so ubiquitous, is it tough for you from a competitive standpoint to kind of keep pushing your brand to the consumer's mind when you have the Expedias of the world, being able to really reach them via TV particularly?
Well, I think what is still important right now is that we still survey guests and you ask them about what channels they prefer to make reservations on. Guests still do fundamentally understand the value proposition of going direct to a supplier. Right? So you see, third parties like Focusrite publishing information about the majority of guests still prefer to book, mm-hmm. even though they may be interested in shopping and looking around and getting information. On aggregator sites like the OTAs, particularly the more informed travelers still have a preference for booking on supplier sites. And I think at the end of the day, the way that we combat the fact that we are dramatically underspent. I don't have $1.2 billion just because that's just your media number. You weren't even, that was just media for $1.2 billion. So because we have significantly less money to spend, I will say that I think at the end of the day, what's important for us is continuing to educate consumers on what are the benefits about going direct to supplier sites. That you are going to get your loyalty program points only if you go to supplier sites. There are going to be special rates available to you only if you go to choicehotels.com. You have the benefit of the best internet rate guarantee on choicehotels.com. So I think that there are still some fundamental, highly compelling benefits of going to supplier sites like choicehotels.com mm-hmm. that a lot of guests get, and as a result you still see, even though the OTAs have significantly more dollars to spend in media, we're still able to hold our own and actually be the preferred site for guests to make their reservations.
Then how, Tara and Debbie, how do you respond?
For us, it really is an opportunity for us to reach more consumers and really expand in the travel. We want more people to travel. We want more people to travel through, I'll be very Choice, Best Western, Wyndham, Marriott, Ritz-Carlton. We want more people to travel because we just want more of that discretionary spend. So if we can go out and expand and reach those consumers internationally and then get them inspired to travel, that's really what we're trying to do, to market the idea of travel. where they choose to site, where they choose to book. It depends about conversion. It depends about what is the best rate, what is the best value for the consumer, who has the best content, who can book the fastest. And it is about loyalty points. That's why hotels has those loyalty. It is about giving consumers the freedom to choose when and where they want to book. And that's really what we're hoping to do. And it does allow us to billboard effect, to expand more. We know that consumers search our sites, but we do know that they book. As we said before, we have such a small share of the pie, much larger share, so it gives us lots of opportunity. And we really, again, look to see how we can globalize that.
It's just another channel that assists them in the billboard effect. There's a lot of advertising, marketing, and a lot of consumers still go direct once they do all their shopping on us. Go ahead and book direct. Yeah. Or, as you said, if they choose to book on our site, because we have different content, other amenities that aren't available. And that's what happens. It's a good co-opetition, I think.
Co-opetition. I like that one.
You're seeing too that Expedia just did a loyalty program.
Right.
So you have that. And then the configuration of the shopping basket, I do think is a compelling differentiator. Where you can just put it all together. And it's getting, increasingly easier. The OTAs are kind of leading that. It is getting increasingly easier to just do it all right there. And even in mobile, So I think that's also going to have an impact on, overall advertising, marketing, and channel shift. People don't put OTA commissions in advertising, but in effect, that's what they are. Right? It really isn't. It's like it's an advertising. Those are advertising dollars because it's really driving business to your brand ultimately, right?
Yeah. So, anyway. And like a site like ours, you can book your air, hotel, show, tour, nightclub, dining spot, everything all in place.
One-stop shopping
across whatever brands that you're looking to purchase with.
Right.
So it would be impossible. Their core is running hotels to be able to do all that.
Yeah.
In a particular destination, but brand direct in other communities, there's certain communities like Orlando, Vegas, where it makes more sense to be able to do it.
One comment on your channel shift, the 50 traditional versus non, and that's been, from zero. I mean,
we're at 10%
4 years ago, you were 4. I mean, we started.
We're at 10% maybe.
Yeah, 4.5%, 5%. So, yeah, So that way it seems, what's interesting to me is I observed that the shifts inside of, say, everything or just in digital, however you want to look at it. But, some of the reasons that mobile seemingly isn't, because, it is a zero-sum game. And there are rising channel costs happening from the third parties, right? Which is fine, given occupancies and whatever. But I think one staggering effect is even inside of, take social, for example, Facebook and spending more money to get, I've talked to a lot of the brands or hotel chains or destinations that have said, in fact, at Attaway, Steve Weiss, at Attaway said from Marriott Vacations said, we got to be there. Haven't figured out the ROI, and the money's got to come from someplace. So, we kind of have to, sort of peel it out as we go and learn as we go. But there's not going to be this look at the stats and jump on it, and go because it's a zero-sum game. So I think that generally there's still that challenge, even though the total line has moved. Now within there's things like social and mobile that need to be offset. So what channel is going to decrease, or where's the money going to come from, right? Where are you going to take it from? And it's interesting. It'd be interesting to hear, like the brands versus the OTAs looking at those trade-offs, right? Because it's different for them too. But I think that has a staggering effect on being able to meet the demand of the shift to mobile. Because where's money? What are you going to stop doing, right? I mean, I don't know if anyone wants to comment on that, but I just want to put that out there.
I think that having good mobile sites that people are finding and doing mobile advertising are two very, very different things. And if you have good mobile sites, people are going to find you. You don't necessarily need to do mobile advertising. And so we're actually seeing some, great increases in mobile, and very few of our brands are doing any type of mobile advertising. So I think it's just kind of natural. I mean, again, if that device becomes an extension of you, you're going to the search, you're going to your Google page, and you're typing in whatever you're looking for. So I think it's important that, I'm not saying that mobile perhaps couldn't grow as quickly, but we're spending very, very little in mobile advertising and mobile marketing, yet we're seeing some great returns in mobile. So it's a channel and it's a marketing channel. Those are kind of two different things.
And it's a customer service channel. I mean, they could go to there and you could get your website on there, but it was a horrible customer. So if you're putting the customer first, that is, looking at it, they could get our site on mobile before, but God help them stay on it, because it
that's therein lies. I mean, what is marketing? It's like what you said earlier.
Right, it wasn't a service to them, and for us, it's a little different. We have 400 hotels that they're on our site, they're on our mobile site, they're on everybody else's sites, but if we can bring more people, they don't need to necessarily book through our site. But if we can help them make that decision path and not lose them, that's all part of it. Because if they get on and they're frustrated and they're going somewhere else, or they can't, that's really the reason we have a booking engine on our site is if they want to complete the transaction, they can. If they want to buy tickets, they can. But we're just as happy to send them out to one of our hotel partners, send them out to one of our OTA partners, send them out to one of the brands. It's how do you help make the
there is a cost to building that channel, and there is a wide array of degrees, to your point, of a channel that is sticky and is going to make them come back because they love it. It's got all this wonderful stuff and it goes into loyalty and all that versus just a channel that's not really. So there's an expense that you're kind of putting that in the channel bucket.
What we were talking about earlier, if you're asking us our marketing budget, how much is spent online, then you have to put in how much of it costs to, build out our mobile websites and our websites, and that would become a different equation. That's a harder number to look at. And I bet you if you looked at it as a percentage, the percentage going to online would actually potentially be less than 50% of the entire marketing fund, because there's just a lot of hands in that pot. But, so I think the easiest thing to look at is when we are actively spending marketing dollars and media dollars, how much is going online versus offline. Frankly, I don't think we've ever looked at it in terms of how much money goes to e-commerce in terms of everything that touches e-commerce.
And again, how do you put engagement activities? Are they marketing activities? Are they advertising activities? Are they not?
Well, and also the reality is it's not that expensive to do a good, serviceable, mobile optimized site. It might not have tons of bells and whistles, but if you can come in, search, find what you're looking for, easily book it. Maybe you don't, we now have something where if you're booking same day or next day, you don't even have to put in the credit card number, so you're kind of coming in, coming out. So, and those aren't that expensive to be able to provide a good customer experience. If you were a higher end hotel and you wanted to book spa and restaurant, this and that, a whole other issue. But as a very simple, elegant, easy to use booking engine, it's not that hard.
So to that point, just
I hear, it wasn't that hard.
But what I'm hearing you say is interesting. If you do look, because you looked at channels, travel agents, call centers, so if you looked at mobile now and that mix just on the channel side, I think the average. What you're saying is mobile's like going to come up with the cheapest channel?
I don't know about cheapest. And it's still a small percentage of our budget. Now, Kelly, you kind of own this day to day. Our head of e-commerce kind of runs those sites. I don't know if that would be considered cheapest, but it's kind of a no-brainer that you kind of need to get your, sites easy to use and optimized, and then,
costume.
Yeah, Mike, I wouldn't say it would be the cheapest because you've already had to build the content for your site, and so you're actually making other accommodations to sort of retrofit to the mobile device.
Right.
And you're going to have a much more efficient transaction probably on your own site versus a mobile site. It's just going to be easier to navigate and get around. At least that's what we see.
I think it also depends on how it evolves from the user expectation, because right now, typically people use a device because it has to be really, really, really simple to use. So buttons are big, information, you strip away a lot of information content. So there's not a lot of stuff there. But if that changes, and users expect more of this kind of experience on the mobile device, then, that zero-sum game where you think about, are I going to spend time optimizing a website by removing Flash, or am I building a native app? Like, that's a very different thing. So, like, right now, it is relatively simple. But as it gets more complicated, if it does, then, because I think you can go on.
How many apps are you going to build?
I'm sorry?
Right? I mean, how many apps are you going to build, right? I mean, every time you build an app, it's $100,000. So if it's going to be complex enough to handle what you may or may not need, but you start looking at, 7, 8, 9, 10 platforms, and you're not going to continue to update 10 platforms with apps over and over and over again. It becomes very cumbersome. I think it's an interesting issue that everybody has to face. We personally chose not to build apps for anything outside of Android and iPhone. But there's still, millions of BlackBerry users that won't get access to a Ritz-Carlton mobile app.
To your question though about the cost of mobile, I mean, there's the initial upfront cost to build out your platform and build apps and that kind of thing. But the real question around cost for mobile has to do with what you believe about transactional level costs on mobile, right? And so there's a couple of different ways to think about it. On one hand, if we're shifting share from people, and this is something that is a little bit unique to the economy and mid-scale segment with a high percentage of drive-up, reservations. If what you're doing is shifting share from people who would have just showed up at the property directly to instead they are getting on their mobile device and making a reservation on choicehotels.com, I love that because I'm driving so much more revenue to our hotel owners because you're talking about almost a 30% ADR premium, the difference between making a reservation in the property direct and making a reservation at choicehotels.com. So I love the idea of that channel shift of someone just rolling in and going to mobile because I'm just driving so much more ADR for our properties. That's fabulous. However, if you said that those mobile reservations, the share shift is coming to high cost channels like OTAs, or that mobile reservation is one that's being made with some kind of intervention by an intermediary like Google or Kayak where we pay a cost per click or we pay a commission basis, you're potentially introducing more costs by going through mobile. And so it kind of just depends on what you're talking about. Where is that share shifting from? And that's why it becomes that much more important to do things like we were talking about in directing guests to go to brand.com directly. Do not pass go. Do not go through an intermediary. Go directly to brand.com. Go directly to choicehotels.com because that ends up being free and a really high ADR. And so at the end of the day, it is the most profitable way in which a hotelier can make a reservation.